to jail.
So, in other cases, like employer firing an employee, so the employee is going and filing a case against, the especially racial discrimination. So we see a lot of these cases nowadays. So, if you can talk on that.
See, first of all, one must understand, as I said to you earlier, because the labor laws are all codified for protecting the employee rights. Most of the labor laws in the world, they're designed to protect the employee. So employee has a lot of rights. So, but don't abuse them.
Yeah.
For example, as you rightly said, that why they're terminating you. So America is hire and fire policy. If you see, for example, if somebody is filing an H-1B for you and you get 3 years of employment, but there is also an employment agreement executed between the employer and employee. And that employment agreement is a contract law. And it says that it is employee at will. What does that mean? Employee can terminate the employment, employer can terminate. With cause, without cause. In common law in England, they said you cannot terminate without cause. You have to show some justification why you are terminating me. But in America, I can terminate you without any cause. Means next day morning I could come and say, I don't like you, you have a tattoo, I can fire you. So, with cause and without a cause. And tomorrow, I could come and say that you might be chatting with somebody on Facebook or WhatsApp. I said, I don't want you, I can fire you. So, with cause and without cause. Sometimes I might not even like you. I want to fire you. So, as an employer, I don't have to give you any justification. That is without cause. And I can terminate you anytime. That is what the employment agreement says. It is at will. Employee can say, I don't want to work for you. I got another job, I'm going. So, but the employment agreement will say that you have to give 4 weeks of notice. And if you don't follow that, there's a breach of agreement by the employer or by the employer. For example, if I want to terminate you because we have an employment agreement, I have to give you 4 weeks notice. Let's say that you're my employee. I sponsored you on an H-1B. Tomorrow I say, I don't want you. I'll give you a 4-week notice. Go and find another employer. If you can't find an employer, I will have to give you notice and I will have to pay you repatriation funds. I have to pay you airfare. I said, go home. And I have to pay you all the wages. That is an obligation on the employer. And what is the obligation of an employee? Employee has to find another employer to find another H-1B. Or if they want to go home, they have to take the repatriation funds, they can go home. Sometimes they want to go and get educated, they want to get new skill, and they can go and get a change of status to an F1. Or if they want to...
if they are like citizens.
Citizens.
Yeah.
If they're citizens, then because they can go and get unemployment benefits also. That's one thing.
Yeah.
And two, they have to see under what circumstances employer has terminated you. As you rightly said, that these days they are filing discrimination claims. Discrimination is a civil rights claim. It is not a Department of Labor claim. You go to the Civil Rights Board and say that because my human rights have been violated, because he is discriminated me, that let's say that I'm working with this employer as an accountant or I'm working as a programmer, now he find another girl or a boy who is working for him for a lesser price or lesser compensation, he fired me, he's discriminated me. So in those cases you can file a case that because of that reason he terminated me, unreasonably is terminated. That is called discrimination. So the onus is on you when you file a complaint on discrimination claims. In discrimination claims, you cannot ask for a civil compensation. You can only go to the human rights, civil rights authority and file a complaint. They will see whether you're being discriminated because you're an American citizen. Most of the times the discrimination claims are good for government, not for a private employee. For example, you're working for a government, they fired you. The discrimination claims are valid for that. Sometimes for the private also, discrimination claims are valid, but there are very thin line between the government and private. So most of the discrimination claims, if your employer is a private consulting company, you will not be successful. So that's what it is.
So here we want to make sure the agreement is properly done.
Yes. First thing is the employment agreement has to be properly drafted. Most of the times what these desi companies they do, they pick up online employment agreement template and they cut and copy.
Yeah.
And cut and copy is called plagiarism in America. It's an offense. You can't cut and copy. And two, when you're giving an agreement to the employee, most of the time employees want a job. So they take your agreement. You have a right to approach an attorney. And you can get a legal representation. Somebody could review your contract and say that this is against your interest. Most of the times when I see employment agreements, they're so poorly drafted. I give you an example. For example, if your company is a Virginia company and your employees are Virginia employees. Let's say you give a job to somebody and there's an employment contract, you give it to your employee. So the employment agreement will say if there is any dispute between you and the employee, California law applies and you have to go to California court. Do you have any relevance of Virginia to California? Because they have cut and copy that in the internet. So California law doesn't apply here. So it's a voidable contract. So it will be a voidable contract. So it will be in favor of employee. Because you're an employer of Virginia. Why would you want, if any dispute happens between an employer and employee, to be in California? Because your law of Virginia applies. So this will be in favor of employees. So this will be a voidable contract. So one, as an employer, you have to have a good lawyers to draft a contract. And employees, when the employer gives you an employment contract, try and see an attorney who does employment law. Get your contract reviewed by an attorney. Talk to them and ask them whether this contract is drafted in interest of you as an employee. Sometimes there are some clauses are in the interest of employer and there are some clauses in the interest of employee. So get them reviewed and vetted by a lawyer and get it executed. That means sign the contract. Otherwise, these contracts will be invalid. It will be thrown in the garbage. So there'll be loss to the employee, loss to the employer if they want to litigate on the employment agreement. That's the reason in this country, lawyers play a pivotal role in contract drafting. But most of the desi guys, they go online, pick up something from online and they cut and paste. So that's not the right way. So we get all those cases, we always advise clients.